Hi guys, N7ECV here again, this time with an after-action report for this year's T-Rex event. T-Rex, or the End of the World as We Know It readiness event. It happens once a year and is put on by AmRRON radio operators. This is pretty neat because AmRRON is more than just ham operators and involves the public in many forms. This event helps us operators test not only our skills, but our equipment as well, in a multi-day grid-down situation. This year was a simulated takedown of GPS and cell phone service, along with major disruptions in EBT and welfare, digital commerce as well. The AmRRON website does a fine job of simulating and decimating the scenario via news updates to the storyline, along with the passing of simulated welfare messages throughout the entire weekend. Check out these pretext stories leading up to this year's events. My TEOTWAWKI battery pack did me just fine for the weekend's needs. However, I needed to run a few other station accessories as well. So, I put the Blue Eddy power bank and the Binks power bank in service to test their resiliency. I had my ICOM 705, a laptop, a lamp, and my weather station all up and running off-grid. All solar power with backup batteries of some sort. I also had an old ICOM 2-meter all mode, along with my Anytone handheld. I plugged my TEOTWAWKI and the 2-meter in the Blue Eddy, along with my laptop. That configuration worked for 14 straight hours with all the items on. My Blue Eddy was either powering or charging my entire shack and dropped to just about half power. By the end of that day, I had planned to test my solar system this weekend as well, so I removed the Blue Eddy from the equation and charged it with my 120 watt panels. That took about 8 hours to bring it back to full. I then relied strictly on my TEOTWAWKI and my Binks power bank for the next 36 hours. I did not change my operating habits as I wanted to push the limits of my station. I was on the air of monitoring the bands and AmRRON net frequencies for over 14 hours a day for 3 days. My humble system did me just fine. My only hiccups were from still learning the procedures and processes of AmRRON nets and a workaround for FT8 time loss in a simulated loss of grid and GPS time accuracy environment. So I spent the weekend studying the AmRRON SOI. You can order one for yourself here in the AmRRON Resources tab. Along with many other learning and training aids, the SOI is the tool to get you started in AmRRON communications. Now, the hard copy edition is only available to paid AmRRON Core members, but you can buy the PDF for $6 and get yourself started. That being said, joining AmRRON is free, and most of the information you need to get started is offered on the website. AmRRON Core is a yearly $40 that gives you access to a bit more of the website and a few other perks, but one does not need to buy in to play this game. Now the bad news. There were no stations locally that I could hear or connect with during this exercise. This really opened my eyes to the fact that no matter how well we think we are prepared, If there is no station on the other end, my radiogram or stat reps just sit on my desk. The idea of networking with locals was slowly changing to networking with those who could actually hear me and that were willing to reply. For this exercise, my best link-ups were voice communications on the 40-meter AmRRON net. Unfortunately, it was the Idaho net. Not an issue really, except the NCS was an hour ahead of me. So I had to adjust my check-in schedule to not only include my local net or scheduled times, but to do it an hour early 5 times a day, as well as check my local timed nets on Channel 3. So that was a learning experience for sure. I knew I had to come up with a few other ways to establish contacts and communications and test my system. I made a QST for the 40-meter noontime net and asked all stations who could hear me to please send me an email. I then used WinLink to check my emails and the RX reports. That was a fun test, and it didn't congest the net too much either. I then wanted to test my station's transmit capabilities on the smaller batteries. I was able to work digital modes for over 5 hours continuous, as well as some single sideband throughout the 3 days, with many more hours a day monitoring the bands. By the end of the exercise, my TEOTWAWKI was down to 40%, my BICS down to 80%, and my Blue Eddy was still fully charged and only used for my laptop a second go-around. Simple exercises like this are a great way to really test what we think we know or have in our stations. On paper, our stations perform well and pretty close to spec, but in reality, those specs are in perfect conditions. Your power bank might not be good enough, and this is the time to find out. If you want to join AmRRON and become a free member, check out this page here. Now, in closing, my idea of local comms in an emergency was way off. My digital modes needed brushed up just a bit. My station's power needs are well met. And my first hope of connection and communication to the AmRRON group may be through Idaho. There were no 2-meter comms. There were no Channel 3 comms. In fact, I made very few connections with anyone locally. I was able to test my Black Echo and get a report back, so that was a relief. My station will perform when needed, and I'm very proud to report that. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you get motivated to get out there. And thank you to those who helped me survive the TEOTWAWKI 2022. This is Doomsday Sean, N7ECV QRP Life 7-3.